Hello and welcome to Horsepower. Once again, we're here in Reno, Nevada at the Reno Gazette-Journal with Beryl, the executive editor. Did I say that right?
You did.
Executive editor. There was I know a managing editor, I know a production editor, and now I know an executive editor. Beryl is the executive editor of the Reno Gazette-Journal, and the Reno Gazette-Journal is doing a lot of cool online social media stuff these days, and Beryl's here to tell us about it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Number one, tell us about your take on user-generated content and how that plays into what the newspaper does.
I think early on we got very excited because we thought, oh boy, all of these things that we get asked to cover, the quote-unquote chicken dinner news,
right?
People can just do it themselves and send it to us, and that'll be great for us because it's good content. And we can expend our resources on doing big J journalism. But people don't want to do our jobs.
Right.
And so that part of the experiment didn't go as people wished it would. But what we see is that if there's some big event that captures our attention, people are sharing content because they're capturing it, they're sending it. So they're not really doing the job we envisioned that they would be doing, but they're doing quite a bit that we have been able to, add to the way we approach news gathering.
Well, along those lines, Gannett, Reno Gazette-Journal is a Gannett-owned paper, and Gannett just bought a social networking and analytics company, Ripple 6, or is it
Correct.
Ripple 6? Yeah,
it's Ripple 6.
I think I might have mistyped it in my notes, but Ripple 6. And so, from what I've learned, this is kind of like a Facebook Ning kind of a setup. Is that right?
It is. We're using it on our mom websites, Moms Like Me, and there is a Reno version of that. It allows for all the utility that people expect for social media and gives us a lot of analytical information that our advertisers demand, because it's one thing to say, oh, here's our audience and here's our page view. But they're getting advertisers want to know more. How much time are they spending on the site? Can you give me a profile of this user?
Right.
And that's what Ripple 6 has allowed us to do.
So let's talk about online journalism.
Okay.
The Seattle Post-Intelligencer announced today that they're dropping their print edition. No more print newspaper. No more big stack of papers coming out of Seattle.
Dead trees.
Dead trees. The Dead Tree edition,
That's
the DTE. What's your take on that? How can... See, the quote from Frank Bannock Jr., he said they'll be focused on turning SeattlePI.com into the leading news and information portal in the region. Do they have to have a print? Do they have to have a print version to fulfill that goal?
They don't, but they have to have a revenue stream.
Yeah,
that's the scary part. The Pew report just came out, which is kind of like a state of the industry study, and not just for newspapers, but for all media. It looks at a lot of different things, and even though all you hear about is the declining revenues of newspapers, it's still 90% right now of the total revenue stream. So what they're going to be faced with is, how can we have that kind of a site, and I'll phrase it this way, how can we employ enough journalists with an online-only model?
Right.
That's the dilemma they will face. So I think they're going to have to look at a lot of user-generated content. I think they're going to have to look at being a big aggregator, kind of beating Google at its own game, kind of being the local aggregator for the Seattle area.
Right.
So there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people that will watch this and be cheering for them, myself included.
Well, I mean, the model is totally different. I mean, there's obviously there's Google and there's Huffington Post, but there's also things like Zimbio.com that are leveraging user-generated content in a fairly sophisticated way to get advertisers and can get people's eyes on stuff, and so it can be done. It's just totally different.
Right. And I think 2009, 2008 was the year where we just watched the bottom fall out, and so there will be I think a lot of innovation that's kind of been backburnered a little bit. That is going to pop up, and we'll see, examples like that. I'm also watching very closely a website called The Daily Beast, which is Tina Brown, former Vanity Fair editor. Her website has a nice balance. It's kind of like the Huffington Post, but with more rich media, and she's cast this wide net of of people who contribute, and it's kind of the site to be right now. And so it's one I'm watching because I think it's got a chance of helping us see what that model's going to be.
What do you think is incentive to getting people to contribute in a high level to a newspaper? What's my motivation as a blogger to now contribute to Reno Gazette-Journal?
Well, I think the primary motivation would be an audience, because anybody can go to Blogger, set up an account,
Right.
and have an audience of like 3 people, and then it kind of stops there.
Right.
So one mistake I think we made as a company with our latest version of our website is that we have a kind of homegrown, not homegrown really, we partnered with a company called Pluck that gave us all the social media utility that we currently have on rgj.com. And its blogging format is great because if I'm a registered user on rgj.com, I get a lot of things. I can create a blog, I can upload photos, I can have a persona page. But the utility of that blogging tool isn't what bloggers really want. And so imagine if you went to rgj.com and we could seamlessly integrate the Reno area's kind of preeminent bloggers. It would be great for them, and the incentive would be they now have an audience of about 500,000 unique visitors a month,
Right.
which even the top blogger in town, I'm guessing, has far less than that. So that would be, I think, a help to both us as kind of a content provider, letting people know what's really going on in the area, and the citizen journalists. It gives them that audience that they don't have right now. If I were to design it, it would be, no matter what format I'm using to blog, that rgj.com would be able to handle it in real time and with the same functionality, so that we could have featured bloggers on our site, and the content would be the same, but you would be reading it on rgj.com. And if I commented on it, it would be up, if the blogger is allowing anonymous comments, that it would be allowed if they get to it through us, and vice versa if they want only.
So like an equitable exchange of content and readership.
But I think we have to kind of agree on what the platform is for that to work, or at least have somebody smart enough to figure out how to, that our blogging functionality is not limited to Pluck, that it can be whatever, wherever you're on it would work.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for taking some time to talk with us.
You're welcome.
This is Horsepower. I'm not even going to try and tell you what episode number this is, because it's just too high. We're here with Beryl Love, Executive Editor of Reno Gazette-Journal, and thanks for joining us. You have to say, oh, we weren't recording.